Have you ever been in a situation, in a relationship, where there is a recurring pattern of behavior, a recurring drama, if you like, that happens, and you have always in the past allowed yourself to take responsibility, not just for your part in the situation, but also take responsibility for the other person's behaviors. Have you ever done that? I think many of us have probably done that. Maybe not consciously, but certainly as a coping mechanism, perhaps. And so what's happened is that we may have acquiesced or settled or really extended ourselves beyond a point that felt good for us. You know, you would have felt, even as you were doing it, you knew it didn't feel quite right. You were uncomfortable about doing it. You knew there was something pulling you back from it, but your mind kept telling you, no, this is the right thing to do. This is a good thing to do. This is the loving thing to do. This is the morally good thing to do. Have you ever been in that kind of situation? And so time and time again, you've probably, as I said, acquiesced more than felt right and comfortable for you, more than you knew deep down in your gut that you really shouldn't be doing this. And maybe it wasn't clear to you in the way that I'm expressing it right now, but there was a sense of discomfort. You may not have known what exactly it related to in terms of I'm being forced to compromise, I'm forcing myself to settle, I'm forcing myself to compromise, I am giving too much, and in the process I am being diminished and allowing myself, a part of myself, to not be acknowledged or heard or met by the other person. And so you, like I said, you may not have recognized it in those exact terms, but you might have felt and chosen to override and ignore those not entirely pleasant and comfortable feelings, because your mind was insisting that this was the right thing to do, the moral thing to do, the good thing, the Christian thing, the loving thing, the whatever. You know what I mean? Well, I want to share with you a technique that has worked, really worked for me when I have been in these situations. And in recent times, there was precisely that kind of situation. And I realized that I was acquiescing, I was wanting to acquiesce out of fear, go along to get along, you know, that kind of thing, and at the expense of really allowing a part of myself to not be acknowledged and honored and respected, certainly if not by the other person, but not even by myself, because I was on the verge of making that compromise. And it was out of fear, you know, it was out of fear. I was so afraid of hurting the relationship. I was so afraid of not being able to doing something or not doing something that would therefore make the damage irreparable. You know, there's that fear, and I'm sure we've all experienced that from time to time. So I have a technique, and it really, really came to the fore in such an obvious and powerful way, and which is why I'm really wanting to share it with you. Now, I have shared and taught people this technique, or at least a variation of it. But I want to share today a slightly different variation of it, which is what makes it so extremely powerful. And do you know what? Without exaggeration and without going into details, I'm just going to tell it as it is. And that is, as I was on my evening walk and thinking about this relationship, and in a sense, and I was actually commending myself for not giving in. And when I say give in, I don't mean that I was engaged in a battle. I mean, I wasn't dishonoring myself. That's what I mean. By taking certain kinds of actions that I would have taken in the past. So I was commending myself for having the fortitude and the faith that all was well, and that even though there had been fear, I was able to not allow the fear to bully me into actions that I knew deep within me, in my body, were not the right actions to take. So as I was walking and thinking about the situation, and as I said, acknowledging and commending myself for having stayed steady and grounded in faith, what I was inspired to do, and even though I had done variations of this prior to this moment, what I was inspired to do was to look into the relationship once again and realize that my intention was that whatever action I was inspired to take, whatever action that love is going to guide me to take, what I knew I wanted, and what I knew was I was rightfully entitled to, was to feel strong, was to feel no loss of power, was to feel peaceful, was to feel free, was to feel kind and loving, was to feel open and receptive. That much was unequivocally clear to me. And so when all that feeling and that intention became clear to me, and I was able to give it the language that it needed, and I can tell you that you don't have to have the language. The language is like the after effect, really. The main thing is having that feeling within you, that the conviction, which is truly a feeling within you, that this is what you wanted and were rightfully entitled to feel as this relationship evolved, as this particular situation within the relationship evolved, right? So I intended that, and as I was doing it, the sense of calm and relief and confidence and strength within me was so palpable. So, it wasn't dramatic, but it was just like, yes, this is exactly what I want. And I want the same for the other person, that there must be no diminishment of their power or their strength. If anything, all of it grows. No diminishment of their peace and their joy and their freedom and their sense of dignity and self-respect. There must be no diminishment of that for both of us. And as I said, as I was intending that, bringing it very much into the forefront of my consciousness, I felt this beautiful sense of relief. And then guess what? Then guess what? Within half an hour, I received a text message. Now, for reasons of confidentiality, I will not tell you exactly what was in that message, but I can tell you it was a message from the other person involved, and it was a message of, that felt to me calm, thoughtful. It wasn't, as I said, it didn't feel like there was a diminishment of the other person's power, like it wasn't as if now the other person was doing something that they weren't comfortable doing, that it was that they felt diminished by their action. That's how it felt to me. Of course, I cannot speak on behalf of the other person to say conclusively what they felt, but that was how I felt as I read that message. And when I read it, it was like within half an hour of me having that intention. And I cannot tell you how powerful this technique is, and how much this is based on the fact that we don't live in isolated holes, or we don't live in isolation of each other. We are all interconnected, right? And so there's communication happening all the time, whether in words or in text or in speech or in thought. There is information flow all the time. So anyway, when I read this, again, my response was a very calm and steady, yep, this is good, and it is confirmation that I had taken the right course of action, or non-action, or inaction, but that my intention was pure and solid and not in any way contaminated by fear or guilt or history and the stuff I'm talking about. Anyway, I wanted to share that with you because I would like, if you are ever in that situation, to really focus on what it is that you want, and to become clearer about what you are rightfully entitled to, and to be very clear that any action you take, any decision you make, if it is going to be truly for the good of the relationship, then it must be good for all parties concerned, not just for one. And so, such a decision or action will not require anyone's diminishment anyone's having to give up power or to acquiesce or to give in or to be submissive. That is never an action out of love. It never is, and it can never be for the good of all. I hope you find it useful. If you have any thoughts or questions, please feel free to leave a comment about it. And in the meantime, wherever you are, I really wish for you to remain always in your power, to know, not from an egotistical perspective, but from deep within you, from the place and the presence of love, to know without any doubt what you are lovingly entitled to, no more and no less than anyone else. Bye for now.